We all chase after this thing that we think we need, right? But honestly, it doesn't really bring us the happiness we're looking for. Isn't that wild? And most people don't know this until they actually experience it. That is when they lose that person, or they get separated from that person for some period of time, either temporarily or permanently. But then they notice something very interesting. They notice that their life was dependent on somebody else's presence, and that made them very vulnerable. This is what Jesus Christ meant when he said, "He who has found his life will lose it. He who has lost his life for my sake will find it." So your happiness should never be outsourced. Many people outsource their happiness to their relationship. They think that if they have a great relationship, they will be happy. Or they outsource their happiness to their job, to their money, to their status. If I get that promotion, I will be happy. If I get that raise, I will be happy. If I get that car, if I get that house, I will be happy. You know, so many people live their entire lives chasing happiness, thinking that somewhere over the horizon there is happiness waiting for them. It says, "When I get there, then I will be happy." We have outsourced our joy to these things, thinking that our joy is outside of us. This is why, when these things are taken away suddenly, people lose it. They become depressed because they were depending on something that they should not have been depending on in the first place. Happiness comes from within. You can choose to be happy right now. You can choose to be joyful right now. No matter what is going on around you, you have a choice to be happy. Because many times you see that people who have everything, who have fame, who have fortune, who have all the success in the world, who have the perfect family, who have the perfect spouse, perfect children, perfect health, even those people become depressed sometimes. And you see people who don't have any of those things, and yet they are happy. So where is that happiness coming from? It's coming from inside of you. When you understand that, you realize that no one else can take away your happiness. You are responsible for your own happiness. And this is why people who have everything sometimes lose it. And people who don't have much sometimes are very happy. Do you remember the story of Job? In the Bible, Job was a righteous man, but Satan made a bet with God that if he had everything, he would not remain faithful. So God allowed Satan to take away everything from Job, his children, his wealth, his health. But Job never lost his faith in God. And throughout the entire story, Job cursed the day he was born. But do you see anything in Job's story that would make him happy? Do you see anything in Job's story that would make him sad? Well, he lost his children. He lost his wealth. He lost his health. He went from being the most wealthy man in the area to being a pauper. And yet he never lost his peace. Where was his happiness? Inside of him. He knew who he served. He knew who was the righteous one. He knew that God was just and he was faithful to God. And so he didn't lose his peace. He didn't become bitter. He didn't become angry. And in the end, God blessed him even more than he was before. I've seen people who had a lot of money. They lost all their money and then they became happy because they were addicted to money. They were addicted to the things that their money was buying. And then when they lost it, they realized that their happiness was depending on something that they didn't control. I've seen people who were very famous. They were celebrities and they lost their fame, and then they became very unhappy. And then there were other people who were not famous and they were happy. So you can see it in action. You can see it happening. The secret of happiness is to never depend your happiness on something that you don't control. Never depend your happiness on something that is in someone else's hands. Never depend your happiness on something that is subject to change. Because everything in this life is subject to change. Everything except God is subject to change. Our circumstances can change. Our relationships can change. Our health can change. Our emotions can change. Our mood can change. Our jobs can change. Our finances can change. Our reputation can change. Everything is subject to change, but God is not subject to change. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. There is a popular song. Don't put your trust in things that are subject to change. We put our trust in God, who is not subject to change. And then you say, well, how can I not depend on my relationships? Well, by not depending on your relationship for your happiness, you can still value that relationship. You can still work on that relationship. You can still enjoy that relationship. You can still invest in that relationship. You can still love that person. But your happiness is not depending on that relationship. You see the difference? This is a very subtle thing. Think about the following. Think about what happens when you go to sleep at night. What do? Do you take your pillow with you? Do you take your bed with you? Do you take your blanket with you? You just leave all these things behind and you go to sleep. Why? Because you know that when you wake up, those things will be there. You don't need to bring them with you while you sleep. Yet, you know that when you wake up, they will be there. Do you see the difference? This is how it is in all areas of your life. You don't need to take your relationships with you while you sleep, while you are busy doing something else, while you are working, while you are pursuing your dreams, while you are investing in your future. You don't need to take those things with you. Just leave them there. Know that when you come back, they will be there. Don't worry about them. Here's another illustration. When you drive your car, you don't need to hold the steering wheel with both hands all the time, but you know that the steering wheel will be there when you need it. You see the difference? This is how it is in all areas of your life. Let go. Trust that everything will be there when you need it. And this way, you are not going to suffer from anxiety, from worry, from fear, because you know that everything is under control. You are in control. And this is how it should be. You have to feel that sense of control in your life. Let me tell you something. You cannot be happy if you are attached to people. You cannot be happy if you are attached to things. Attachment brings suffering. Attachment brings pain. Attachment makes you vulnerable. And this is why the wise people, the spiritual people, they talk about detachment. And when people hear that, they say, "Oh, I shouldn't care about anyone. I should be detached from everyone. I shouldn't care if my spouse dies or not. I shouldn't care if my children die or not." No, that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about not being attached to people in such a way that your happiness depends on that attachment. You can still care. You can still love. You can still be compassionate. You can still be kind, but you are not attached. See the difference? When you are attached, you are like a little child who needs a pacifier. When the pacifier is taken away, the child cries. When you are not attached, you are like an adult who goes to sleep without needing a pacifier. You know that everything will be there when you wake up. So, the secret to happiness is to not depend your happiness on something that you don't control. Put your trust in God. Have faith in God. Believe in God. Love God. And also, love your neighbor as yourself. Invest in your relationships. Value your relationships. Appreciate your relationships. Enjoy your relationships. Be compassionate. Be kind. Be loving. Be affectionate. But don't be attached. Let go. Detach. And this way, you will be free. And this is what Jesus meant when he said, "He who has found his life will lose it. He who has lost his life for my sake will find it." What does losing your life mean? Losing your life means detaching from things, detaching from people, detaching from your ego, so that you can find your true self, so that you can find your true joy, so that you can find your true happiness. Thank you for watching this video.